Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to go a bit more into detail on the four different types of animation that I discussed in the last video, and then how I price for each one of them. Okay, to start off, we have the social media animations. So these types of animations, uh, I charged between, I think I said in the last video, between $150 to $300, but I've actually even charged up to $600 for a 15-second ad for social media. And I say social media because, they have this sort of typical looping sort of style or like a very short message. And a video or videos like these can take me anywhere between, I don't know, an hour to an entire day. And you could honestly make a living just doing this if you can get enough leads. So I'll just reiterate, it takes about 1 hour to 1 day, which is a full 8 hour day. And these are about 15 seconds to 30 seconds of animation. With these animations, I do not storyboard them. I usually just dive in, I grab a photo or a cutout of their product, and I try to create something based on that. And I usually will, go on Facebook and save a lot of ads as I'm scrolling through Instagram and Facebook, and try to just make something that a client would expect. So on to explainer videos. So here is that explainer video that I showed in the last video. This animation is about a minute long, and I think I got about $2,000 for this animation. So generally, when it comes to explainer videos, it's usually just one animation, one time for a client. The client comes to me, they say, I want you to create an animation that explains our service. In this case, this is a government contracting company. They hook up businesses with government contracts. Government wants to, hire a company that develops, I don't know, toilets. They will hook up the contract that the government puts out with John Toilet Co. There's this sort of in-between person, a liaison. So this animation that I did for them, they're using it as an ad online, and they're also using it on their website to just briefly explain who they are and what they do. With these types of animations, I charge 2,000 per minute because that's what I find that clients are comfortable paying. Not necessarily because that's what it's worth. In the animation industry, an animator might charge by the hour or by a day rate, but since I'm basically a business owner in my own right, I, when a client comes to me and they go, "How much is a 1 minute animation?" I just say $2,000 per minute. That seems to be what works for me. If you Google explainer video animation and you look for any like local studio and you look at what they charge, you'll find that that price varies widely. As a freelancer, you can kind of get away with charging a bit less because you don't have any overhead. You're not paying employees. But you can kind of base what you charge on what studios in your area are charging, if that's primarily who your clients are companies in your area. Now, when it comes to educational videos, I don't charge $2,000 per minute because generally, when a video is being purchased for educational purposes, like in an online course or something that a company wants to show their clients, like a process video for their clients, like, hey, watch this video, it goes over our entire process. Usually in those cases, the animations run a bit longer. They're not 1 to 3 minutes long. They're not used for advertising. The person that's watching this video is already a client of that company, and therefore they're more sold on watching these animations, and or not sold, but maybe they're even required to watch these animations. So they run a bit longer. And because they run a bit longer, the price per minute of animation gets cheaper. So there's two types of there's two types of educational videos that you can do. And obviously, they can be extremely complex and they can have storyboards and scripting, and you have to go through each part of the process. You have to get approval from the client, and those you can charge, quite a bit more for. You could even go up to 2,000 per minute of animation if the client is willing to pay that. But in some cases, the process is literally, you get a piece of audio from the client, and then you're just animating along with that video. And in that case, there's no storyboard. The design doesn't really matter. It's literally just basically creating some motion along with something somebody is talking about. And, like I said, because they're usually in that case purchasing more animation, the price per minute gets a bit cheaper. So in the case of educational videos, I think I charge between $500 to $1,000 per minute in that case. So if I get, 60 minutes for an online course, 60 minutes of animation, I may only charge, $800 per minute. So what is that, like $47,500 or something like that? That's a lot of money. That's great money. And it's not as much, like, it is a lot of animation, but it's not as much work as creating a brand new animation for a client every single time, because usually the style is the same. There's not as many scenes per minute, so it's a bit slower. It's not as much motion because they're trying to communicate something. So animation for those purposes run a bit cheaper. Okay, the last type of animation that I talked about in the last video was the sort of software expose animations. I don't really know what they're called. I would call them screen grabs, but it's not necessarily screen grabs because it's a bit fancier. I do apply some nice motion graphic principles to them to make it so the person watching them, it remains interesting. Now, videos like this could be used for advertising purposes, or they could be used for, educational purposes. Like, here's the process, on our website. This is the process that you have to go through. Those videos, again, I charge anywhere between $700 to $2,000 per minute. And I haven't done too many of them, to be totally honest, but I have found that it's sort of a blend between educational and explainer, where it's like the complexity can vary, and generally, I don't know, just people, like, companies tend to buy that fairly often. At least that's from what I've observed. I've quoted a lot of them anyway. Okay, so when it comes to time or length of time it takes to create these animations for an explainer video, it can be anywhere between, 10 hours to 80 hours for a 1 minute animation, right? So, like this ad that I did for a tree service company, it's a minute of animation, but I think it took me 10 hours to create, and I got $2,000 for this animation. But for this ad that I created for the government contracting company, it was like 50 hours, and I think I got like $1,500 for it. So, a little bit more than a week of work for, 1,500, maybe $2,000 for this animation. I don't actually remember the exact amount that I got, to be totally honest. It's a lot more work. But for a client, when it comes to pricing animation, I found that companies like, nice round numbers. If I go to a company and I say it's $1,000 per minute, or it's $2,000 per minute of created animation, that's something that they can understand, because they're a business owner, or they're, a marketing person, and they can think with that, and they go, okay, good, here's how much information I can put in a minute. Okay, $2,000, or okay, I have $4,000 budget, I can get a 2 minute animation. It's something that's easy for them to understand. But if you go to a client and you say, my day rate is $500 per day, they don't know how fast you work. They don't know how long it's going to take an animation. And quite frankly, when you're first talking to that client for the first time ever, like, they don't know necessarily how long it's going to take, because they don't necessarily even know how much they want to put into that first animation. So my suggestion is try to price based on minute of animation if you intend on sort of like being a business owner. Now, if you're going to get hired by a studio a whole bunch, or you're going to get hired by, one, company, like, very often, an hourly rate or a day rate is probably better for you. But if you're going to be getting a lot of clients and you need to have like a quick, like this is the cost of animation, have a nice range, $800 to $1,500 per minute, something where it's like, okay, that's easy for them to understand. And they're going to ask, like, why is it $800 versus 1,500? And you may have to say, well, $800 is much simpler animation, it's text only. But when it comes to character animation, it gets more expensive because it takes more time. That's $1,500 per minute, and you might have to show examples. But I'm getting ahead of myself here because that's something that you kind of have to work out for yourself. My price is $2,000 per minute of animation, and that has worked for me quite well. So that's all I'm going to talk about as far as pricing for animation goes. Like I said, it's going to be something where you kind of have to work it out for yourself, and I will go more into detail on that. But for now, I hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for the next video.